before we jump into talking about our theme today, I just want to say a big thank you to our speakers, Mahika and Brenelle, for joining us, taking time out of their Sunday morning and joining us. Also, thank you to everybody who's in here listening to us speak. Thank you for your time. Let's just quickly introduce ourselves and get started. So, my name is Ansh Mundra. I am the Chief Growth Officer here at Rome, and I've kind of been responsible for putting the webinar series together. So I'm kind of anxious coming into this event because it's the first one, but I'm very excited as well. And yeah, you guys can kick it off.
I'll introduce myself before we get started as well. So Ansh is absolutely amazing. As he said, he's Chief Growth Officer. I'm a CEO at Rome. And the reason we're doing this is because we wish we had something like this. And it was extremely hard for us to get settled in. And we were like, we shouldn't have anyone else go through that experience. So we're here to help you with anything and everything you need. So feel free to keep dropping questions in the chat as we go through. And we're going to have Simran, who's our head of publishing, also join. She'll be moderating the chat. So just keep an eye out for that. And yeah, anything you feel like asking, you can drop in the chat.
Hi guys, I'm Mahika. I'm a recent graduate from NYU. I majored in biology. And I just want to say a big thank you to you guys for having me here on your first webinar. And I'm sure so many more to come because honestly, it is a platform that we needed. And now we're here to provide it. So that's awesome. And I just hope to help in any way that I can. So yeah, as Krish mentioned, any questions are welcome. So just drop them in the chat.
Hi everyone, I'm Brenelle. I used to be a recent grad. Now I'm just a full-time working person. But I've done my undergrad and my grad in New York and Indiana. I'm also really excited to help you all out. Like Krish and Ansh said, even Mahika said, we never had this, and we wanted to make sure that you all didn't have to go through what we did. So I'm very excited to kind of help you all out through your journey, answer any questions you all have. And thank you, Ansh and Krish, for this beautiful opportunity.
Awesome. That's exciting. All right, so let's jump right into the questions we have prepared for you. So just for everybody to know, this is going to be super chill, like just conversation, and Mahika and Brenelle, like jump in whenever you want and say whatever you want. And the chat, we want to see the chat active. So please feel free to ask any questions and we'll just answer questions as we're going forward. And also we'll have a little bit of a Q&A time at the end. But the theme of today's webinar is settling in and overcoming culture shocks. So Mahika and Brenelle, my first question for you is, do you remember what it was like settling in for you? What was it like in the first 30 to 60 days when you entered the United States?
Wow. I think honestly, the first time around when I first did this, when I first moved here, I was very anxious all the time because I wasn't sure what I was doing. I didn't know how to navigate things. Thank God for the International Student Office, because without them, I think I would still be lost to this day. I still call up my ISS at Purdue and being like, hey, can you help me through this process? But I think it was a lot of anxiousness and trying to figure out what I have to do, because I feel like I was missing what I had to do all the time. And I don't think it was lack of preparedness, but it was the lack of knowing. So I think that was what I felt in the first 30 days. And then I would say 60 days, the 60 days was far more easier because I think I settled in, I got the lay of the land. But then, college happens and you have to join all of these clubs and all of those things. So I feel like the first 30 days was just anxious, trying to figure it out. 60 days, I'm now okay with what's happening. And then it's more anxious, more shopping, don't know where to get my sheets from kind of situation.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I would second everything that you just said. Honestly, for me, when I was coming in, I did a whole year online because of COVID. And so my initial reaction was just of excitement to get out and just go to a new place, to be so honest with you. But as soon as I stepped in, the first thing that I had to do was go to a meeting. And I landed at 6:30 in the morning and I had to be at the meeting at 8 a.m. And so I was just go, go, go on that day. But it really sort of made me jump and dive right into everything that I had to do. And then within the first 30 days, I was like, oh my God, I need to go buy bed sheets. I need to go buy groceries. And finding those go-to places is hard. Like that's definitely like that's one of the culture shocks I had listed is there's so many options. And so just
Mm.
thinking about where to go and what to get, all of that stuff, I feel like that was the anxieties that was going on within the first 30 days. And then 60 days, of course, school happens and you just have no time to think about other stuff. So yeah, that
No, I
was definitely.
completely relate. I think for my first 30 days, so I landed in New York in 2021 January. It was like the peak of COVID. I did a semester online as well. And I remember like coming to New York, and I'm from Dubai, so I know what it's like to live in a big city, but like New York City was especially different and so unique. So I remember feeling so overwhelmed. And like to second your point about like where to get things from, when I came in, I had such a frugal mindset that I would check my bank account quite literally like every 6 to 12 hours just to make sure I'm not making any purchases I don't need to make. Simply because I had this feeling of guilt in my head. I'm like, my parents are spending so much money to send me to the United States so I can get an education. I need to minimize my expenses. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember like trying to grow out of that, and that was quite hard because I was like, should I really spend $20 on a blanket? Like, obviously, you should spend $20 on a blanket, man. Just like basic things. But that frugal mindset was something I had to like grow out of. But it took a while
Did
for
you
me.
guys did you guys ever convert it back to like your
Yep,
currency and be like,
All
shit,
the
bro?
time.
Yeah,
All the
yep.
that
time.
was the
Can't imagine.
biggest issue I had when first coming here was everything was like, oh shoot, how many rupees is this? Oh no, I paid 1,000 rupees for breakfast. I was like, this is not gonna work. I have to let go.
No breakfast, no
Yeah,
work.
so guys, in a nutshell, it's expensive. I think that's one of the biggest shocks you're gonna experience. So
Yeah,
just be prepared for that.
Hmm.
yeah,
But also, I think realize that yes, it's expensive, but that you can't always restrict yourself by converting to your like home
mhm,
currency. Like, yes, you should and be mindful of that. But after a point, you're just gonna get so bogged down by that. It's like, why am I spending like 500 rupees on a bloody coffee? Like things like that is just like
yeah,
not fruitful after a point. But I
yeah.
feel like it's
Hmm.
a process.
It is.
My next question to you, go on, go on. What were
Oh,
you saying?
sorry. I feel like you still kind of not get out of that mindset sometimes because you've done it for so many years. So you have to unlearn it too. But yeah.
Absolutely. And like make choices of where to use that mindset and how to be smart enough to know, okay, I know that this deal is coming up soon, so I can wait until then to get it. And
Yeah,
then
Hmm.
also maybe like splitting things with friends. For instance, like you're not going to use six of that thing, but if it's cheaper, just might as well split it with friends. So being smart about stuff like that, I feel like comes with experience and let yourself feel that and let yourself learn and embrace that and give yourself grace.
Oh, 100%.
I download
Yes.
Splitwise. Yeah.
Wait, I'll be right back. Give me 1 second. My laptop is running out of battery because of the
No worries.
platform. 1 second.
Another thing,
So
just like
guys,
talking
yeah.
about money, is I felt like I was when I came to NYU, I was just suddenly surrounded by people who were way wealthier than me, and they kind of shunned down upon the idea of splitting things. And I just want to say, if you encounter such people, hold your ground and be okay with splitting things because, like, man, money is a finite resource, and like I said, you probably gonna have a lot of guilt when you start spending money out of your own bank account. So, like,
Hmm.
hold your ground when it comes to like, no, dude, I kind of need that money right now for me.
And I
Hmm.
feel like that comes in more when you start working. I know I was working two part-time jobs, at least senior year of college. And you know that you're putting in that work to earn that money that you're spending on yourself. You will be able to hold your ground even more when it's like that. So it's fine to do that, but just be like also surround yourself with people that give you that kind of space to do that.
Absolutely.
100%.
Were there any immediate culture shocks that you experienced, and like how did you process and adapt to them?
I feel like coming into New York City, first of all, I'm so glad that I came to New York City for undergrad. It's such a diverse place, and you'll see people from all walks of life. But the immediate culture shock was nobody cares about what you're doing or what you're wearing. If anything, you're gonna get complimented on an outfit that might be a little over the top. Nothing is really over the top here. And so it's so nice to be able to express yourself in that manner because nobody cares, but also nobody cares, you know? And
Hmm.
so, yeah, you'll see people dressed up in all kinds of things, and it's so cool to be surrounded by people like that. Especially like you walk into Washington Square Park, someone's doing something that you're not expecting there. And so that's like the one immediate culture shock that I can think about.
Um, I think one of my most, I was very deep at this point. I don't know what 17-and-a-half-year-old Brenelle was going through, but she was really going through something. So I stood at Times Square, the place we all love, because I also did college in New York. So I stood in Times Square and I realized that I'm in a place filled with people and not filled with people at the same time. I can be so alone and so lonely, but I can be with so many people and the life of the party. And I think that that for me was kind of crazy that New York held or wielded so much of power. That was like the biggest shock I got because I was like, wow, I have to be here doing all of these things with all of these people. It is crazy. And I have to do it by myself. Wow. So I feel like that was sort of like a shock to me. The other shock that I got was subway dancers. That threw me off completely. I could not. The number of times I had to like close my eyes when they were closed because I thought they'd hit my face was incredible. So
Hmm.
I think that and my subway dancers.
Brenelle, it's so interesting because you've studied in New York and you did your undergrad there, but you also did your postgrad in a university like Purdue, where you're like surrounded by not a lot of things. So,
Cornfields.
did you experience a shock when you were going into Purdue?
Yeah, actually, I did. So funnily so, right? Um, I would think a school like a school in New York would be super diverse, like it's a melting pot. And I would find a lot more people that look like me and stuff like that. But it was not accurate. I had like two other people from Dubai in my school, and I had like four other people from India in my school. That was it. And it was so weird coming from that to going to Purdue where everyone looked like me. There was like this, like I got to celebrate Diwali. I got to celebrate Eid. I got to celebrate all of the stuff that I would regularly celebrate in Dubai in small town Indiana, where the population is barely anything. Like the population comes from the students in that town. So it was crazy. Um, and I think that New York spoiled me because there was so much of culture to learn from New York because it's a melting pot. And all I did in Cornfield, Indiana was cornfields. I went on corn mazes almost every week because that's all we had. So I think in terms of culture shock over there, it was I found a lot of people that I kind of grew up with in Dubai, in Indiana, and that kind of took me back because I've lived in New York for so long that I've become a New Yorker. So becoming a New Yorker and going back somewhere, someplace that's not New York
Hmm.
was so different because everybody's extra helpful, like super nice. It was super Midwestern, and I was never used to that kind of kindness. Um, where they'd like help you out instead of being like, I don't care, like leave me, let's walk kind of situation. And everyone used cars. I didn't understand that. I still don't. But yeah.
That is so interesting. I think one culture shock that I still experience, and like I don't know how to get used to it, is the kind of humor Americans have. I don't know if I should say that, but the kind of humor they have in the sense that a lot of like liberal Gen Z humor is just sort of repeating what the other person said in your own fashion. And instead of like trying to add on to the joke, you just sort of make the joke again. So I would be in like circles of like 5 to 6 people, and I would like be the only like international like brown kid there, and they would be making these jokes. And I'm somebody who's an introvert, so I like to listen more. But in these situations, I was just like literally only listening because I'm like, I don't really have anything to add to your joke. Like if you want me to make the same joke again, I can do that. But like, what's the point? I'm trying to be a comedian. I'm just kidding. But that was the kind of culture shock that I experienced. Krish, do you have any for us?
I think you'll have covered a lot of it. When it comes to immediate culture shocks, I don't even know. Like I was just so occupied with everything else that was happening in terms of getting settling in that until I actually started engaging with people around me when I was like a first year school and we had orientation and everything, that's when stuff started hitting me. I was like, oh, people are very different here. It's not as everyone's a lot more open. I think that's a big thing. You know how normally there's a lot of small talk when you're in India or someplace, like there's a lot more respect. And then you come here and people ask you anything. Like there are no boundaries here. You gotta be cognizant of the fact that yeah, people are gonna come up and ask you all sorts of weird shit. But you just need to know that okay, this happens here. Like people are a lot more forthcoming, and not saying you
Mm-hmm.
should be that way too, but don't be afraid to go up and say hi to someone. Like if you just want to talk, you can definitely just go up and say hi to someone.
Yeah.
Ansh, can you demonstrate the joke with an example?
Other, I saw your message, and you know what? My brain is already thinking. So I will think of a joke, and if I can, I'll do it by the end of the presentation. But you're putting me on the
Um,
spot.
have y'all ever this is something else, Krish, I actually just came to my mind. A lot of Americans have very good, like very strict boundaries. And I think a lot of times like I didn't really have those boundaries coming in, but now I have boundaries. And I think a lot of times, at least for me, when I first started out drawing boundaries, it was very hard for me to set those up. I learned from my American friends. That was another culture shock because I'm not saying like I would like be like, oh, yo, tell me everything about everything. But at the same time, they're very good at setting boundaries.
I totally agree. And when I was thinking about culture shocks and just settling in, I feel like, especially when you go into the work field, people that are from here will stop at 5. I feel like I never do that, and a lot of my international colleagues don't do that either. I feel like the kind of work ethic that we come from is very different. And I feel like my mom used to keep telling me this, and I'm like, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. But to experience that for yourself, you understand that setting boundaries doesn't end ever. And there is something to learn from that, definitely.
No,
Hmm.
that's so true, Mahika, because like people over here are paid by the hour. They're paid
Yeah,
to work only from 9 to 5. So over here, it isn't like, oh yeah, I'll put in the extra work because like, I want to please my, like, yeah, that happens. But also people are very like, that's not my job. I can't really deal with that. This wasn't in my job description. So you have to figure it out on your own.
absolutely.
And the
Like, for
big thing
example, like,
is, go ahead, Ansh.
for example, like Mahika and I, we had to go pick up a UPS truck because
U-Haul
she
truck,
was moving
yeah.
out.
Yeah.
U-Haul truck, sorry. And the people over there were like Loki so unhelpful. They're like, yeah, we just can't do anything about it because the truck wasn't coming and we had to wait for like 3 hours. And that just makes you realize it's like that's just not in their job description. They actually can't do anything about it. Whereas in a place like India or Middle East, they'll be more accommodating. They'll be like, haha, sir, I'll do it for you. I'll do it for you. But like over here, they're just like, yeah, I can't do anything about it.
And a crazy thing is actually not that crazy. It's pretty cool. When you come here, all of you are going to be shocked at how smart you are. Like, don't undersell yourself because
Yes. Oh my God, yes.
this is
100%.
probably not a great thing to be saying, but in general, the white population is not as smart. So you'll be at a you'll be in a good place right off the bat. You'll be like a lot harder working. It's not because they grew up like that. It's just that we're coming from the East, we're a lot more willing and have been working much harder our entire lives. So that's
Mhm.
just something that you should carry forward. Don't get carried away by people who aren't doing as much. Always stay true, right? So do what
Mhm.
makes you feel comfortable, but at the same time, just know that you're gonna be you're gonna be in a good place. So don't stress too much about the academic bit of it. You should be fine. Just, stay focused. Create some sort of balance.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I feel like something people coming from the East, as you mentioned, Krish, is that we know how to figure shit out.
Mhm.
Like just
Mhm.
work things out. Like
Fit
if
for.
I'm not like fit for, and also just like for people from India, like Jugaad. Like we know how to
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
if I don't have a hair straightener, like I'm gonna figure it out. It's fine. Like it's not the end of the world. It's okay. Like we can figure it out. And so stick to that and you'll be fine.
Mhm. 100%.
Yeah, I remember when in my first semester I was taking Math for Economics 1, which is basically Calculus 1. And I remember we had a group meet with all the students in my class. And everybody would just complain, like specifically the American students. They'd be like, this class is so hard, the professor sucks. And I'm just like, dude, it's really not. Like, you really haven't been through a CBSE teacher telling you to do your integration problems. And it shows. And it shows. You know what I mean? So don't fall into the crowd who love to complain and who love to bitch about things simply for the sake of it. Like what Krish said is so important. Is like bring that hardworking mentality that you have, that a lot of us
Mhm.
Indians have. Bring that to the United States, and I feel like your academics, especially in your first 2 years, should be a breeze.
Yeah.
100%. I think also the fact that the way we study, like Americans have AP classes here, right?
Yeah,
All our classes that we take from 10th grade on to 12th grade are all APs.
Yeah.
Honestly, like a bunch of my classes, I did accounting as a minor. The accounting that I did in high school was harder than the accounting I did in college,
agreed.
and that blew my mind. So you all are already
Absolutely.
set up for success. You just have to bring the hard work.
Another culture shock that I want to add, which is a bit ironic, is I I was exposed to the kind of wealth that a lot of Indians have, which I wasn't earlier on because I grew up in the Middle East. Um, when I came to NYU, it is an elite school. It is like a wealthy school, so to say. And I was surrounded by a lot of international students who were Indian, who were also very wealthy. And being surrounded by them, I felt less because I felt like, oh, I don't have that much money in my bank account. Oh, like I have to do this to do that. But I just want to say, if you're ever surrounded by those kind of people, understand that they have certain privileges and you have certain privileges, and we're all born with different privileges. And one of their privileges was that they had a richer dad than you did, and that's just the truth of it, or richer parents. I'm sorry,
That's
but
it.
don't let that make you feel less by any means. Don't let that make you feel like, oh, I can't go out to this restaurant and this and that. That will happen, but I feel like eventually you'll find people who are like you, and you'll want to do things at a more, I guess, stable income level.
hmm
My next question to you guys is, what sort of stressors did you face in your early days, and how did you deal with them?
One of them I already mentioned was learning where to find things. That was definitely one of them. Academically, I would say just while there are people that are from here that may not be that smart, there's a few that are like really, really smart, and it doesn't matter where they're coming from, but it's so nice because a lot of people are so willing to help you that even if you're like stressed about an assignment, which is done a little bit differently here than it may be done in India, you can still ask for help from your peers. You can ask the TAs and everyone for help. So I think some of the stressors that I had was figuring out academically doing things the way they do here.
hmm
Um, because while things can be for some classes easier than high school for us, some aspects of college, well, college is not like high school at all. Definitely. You're balancing a million things at the same time. You're learning how to live on your own. You're learning how to cook for yourself, do your own laundry. Your whole family bundled into one for yourself. So you need to understand that you're doing all of that and school
hmm
and maybe even working. And so just coming in, it's like the expectation that they have out of you is very different. In India, I remember like writing essays on essays for one answer. And here it's like one word, and if it doesn't match the answer key exactly, that's wrong. I majored in
hmm
biology and we had exams like that. And so even the professors learned from that we have a lot of international students, so we need to sort of pivot the way we are also providing that curriculum. And so don't be thrown off by stuff like this, just ask for help.
hmm That's a really good point. I think another thing, like you were saying, is academically, something that was kind of shocking to me is the way that the style of in which Americans write their papers.
Yeah.
So, um, and honestly, that hit me like a brick wall. Like I kept running into it multiple times. And what I realized is one, the way they spell things in America is very different.
Yeah.
That still throws me off. I'm
Yeah.
not even kidding. It's terrible. So I would say keep an eye out on those things. And then if you guys have time, I would absolutely tell y'all to do like a couple of YouTube videos or maybe even like a small seminar class on writing before you come here because it will save your butt. It will save your butt. I wish I knew that because I struggled with that first. Um, I'm not gonna say I was a great writer. I think I'm like a probably a B minus kind of writer person, like seriously. But I honestly think that if you do a little bit of research into like the writing classes over here and stuff like that, you would be in a very good place. Plus, it'll like it's not like you won't learn how to do it, you will, but the learning curve will be shorter. Um, Another thing that was super stressful for me was fitting in.
Hmm.
I think it scared the living life out of me because I was new to the country. Like, yes, I visited a couple of times, but I was by myself. A lot of people that were around me were very different from me. Like I was saying, I had like maybe three people from India and one me and another person from Dubai. There were two, like we were five of us. And I was in this new city in a new school. I wasn't sure how to make friends, and I would say I'm a very extrovertedly introverted person. So I love making friends wherever I go. That's just who I am. But I was so terrified that I would do something wrong that I went into a shell. And I said, don't do that. I think you should talk to people, you should have conversations, and try to understand American culture or what that looks like because American culture is a mix of like a bunch of things. So if you understand American culture, you'll be able to have more conversations, even if they're like just small conversations here and there. So I think those were like some of my stressors. Um, and I think that the other thing is underestimating how long it takes to go to a place by like subway
Yeah.
or walking. That like still, I'm just like, oh, 30 minutes, I can get that. No, you can't. It'll take you 45. So I think those things literally like stressed me out a lot in the beginning of my journey.
Yeah.
Also, a few more things that are good to remember is everyone loves sports and music. Like everything you already enjoy and like talking about are great ways to start a conversation. So if you see someone going somewhere, or you see a basketball game that happened recently, if you watch basketball, I personally don't watch any sports except F1 sometimes, but any sport connects with people over here. Even cricket, like now with the T20 taking place over here, everyone is talking about sports all the time. So that's a good way to start a conversation. Second is music. But what really I want to dive deeper into is food, because everyone loves food.
Mm,
What did you do for food when you first came here? Where did you go to eat? How much did you spend? What was it like? Was it good food? Was it not spicy? What spices should they carry? Just give us the lowdown on food.
that's such a good question. I would say buy all your spices from, I mean, not all your spices. Get your chili powder from India, like, and garam masala. Get the garam masala and chili powder. I still get mine from India. I'm not even kidding. And I've been here like 10 years.
Oh my
In
God, that's
terms,
so good, Krish. And you can put it on popcorn and you can put it on anything. It's so good. It's
What is
so
Kea
good.
peri peri?
It's a peri
It's the
peri
spice.
masala. It's really good.
I've
I
actually
honestly
never
wish I
had
had
it.
that.
Never had it. Us Dubai kids, we just don't know it.
Sorry.
Guys, if you've had it or not had it, please comment down. Wait, I'm gonna make a poll for that.
Um, what was I think my first meal was so my school had this thing called dining dollars that I'm sure all of your schools will have. Whether it's in the city or whether it's outside the city or like in suburbia, I'm sure y'all will have it. And there was this little it was not like a bodega, but it was called Heavenly Market. It's actually really close to downtown NYU. Um, and we would go there all the time. That was my first meal because I didn't stay around that area, but my friends were in that area or my roommates were in that area. So we went to Heavenly Deli to get like a panini. That was the first time I ate paninis before, but this was just a very different kind of panini. I spent like 30 dirhams on it, and I was very upset about it because it wasn't worth 30 bucks. But I ate that. It was delicious, but I just still didn't think it was worth it. And chai is very expensive everywhere.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, I know exactly the deli you're talking about. I know exactly the panini you're talking about because I've had it too. But for me personally, food like the first semester. So I lived in this hall called Weinstein Hall at NYU, and we had dining halls within my like residence hall, right? So I wouldn't have to go out in the cold in the middle of COVID to get food, which was very convenient for me, and I loved it. And I was getting like so many different options to eat. But that love only lasted for 2 months, and it quickly turned into hate because I think like I just got really sick of dining hall food, and I feel like a lot of people experience that as well. Is because there's not a lot of veg options first of all, and like I am non-vegetarian, but like I don't eat a lot of different meats, so that was one thing for me. I would only eat chicken, and I didn't really like their chicken. And then eventually I felt like the amount of money I was paying for the dining hall food was simply not worth it. So eventually after a semester I moved out into an apartment and I started cooking on my own. And the point I want to highlight is meal prepping. Your first year, you probably have dining hall food, but eventually, once you guys get an apartment, once you live off campus, meal prepping is one of the valuable skills you can learn as a college student because
Hmm.
not only are you saving so much money, you're also saving so much time and energy thinking about your meal. Half of being an adult is just thinking about your next meal. Literally, I don't know what I'm going to have for dinner, and it's stressing me out right now.
Mm.
So, meal prepping is like one of the best skills you can acquire as a college student.
Most definitely. I feel like coming in to the US, one luxury that I had was that I eat anything and everything. It's fine. Like I'm okay. I'm not really picky, and I'll make do with whatever I have. And that's a really nice, I think I love that I gave that to myself. But sometimes the dining hall food is just really, really bad. Sometimes it's undercooked, sometimes it's way too cooked, sometimes it's not cooked at all. And the good thing with NYU was that there's multiple different dining halls that you can sort of go to and explore. And you find your favorites and you sort of like meet up at like a particular time with your friends to go to that particular dining hall and just chill out. But most definitely, it saves you so much more money if you just meal prep. Like you will significantly reduce the cost per meal for if you meal prep. But the caveat with that is that you're gonna have to have the same thing for 4 meals. If you're okay
Yeah.
with that, that's totally fine. If you have another way to spice it up, please also let me know. But going back to the point of what spices to bring, I know that I got turmeric, chili powder, coriander powder, and a few of like the more heavier like cinnamon, cardamom, all of those things from India because I just thought that they were better there, bay leaves and all of that stuff. I'm also a person that really likes to cook and I will take my time to make different things and experiment and all of that stuff. But just know that there's a lot of like garlic powder, salt, pepper. You'll get that here. You don't need to lug it with you. One thing is bring your Maggie. Like that's
Yes.
Yes.
I think one of
Yes.
the few things that I was struggling initially was finding familiarity in a very unfamiliar place. You'll find people
Mhm.
that look like you'll have friends, but there will be times that you're getting homesick. And what do you do? What you do then is what's going to determine how you will do for the next few years and how you will deal with that for the next few years. And so, of course, your parents and your family are just a video call away, but having something that reminds you of home, that brings you that kind of comfort, like learn how to make dal chawal if that's what gets you. Like that's what I did. And just learn a few things before getting here and you're like, okay, like this weekend what I'm yeah, Dubai Maggi is definitely better, but Indian is fine too if that's what you have. But just learn how to make these meals for yourself just so that one day if you're just like feeling a little low or something, you're like, okay, I'm gonna take a break from everything that I'm doing and make myself this wholesome meal that's gonna remind me of home, and then I'm gonna get on with my day. So I
Mhm.
feel like with respect to food, that's one thing. Another thing is don't be afraid to explore places. Even if it's a cheap like pizza or anything, just like go out and have something that is pertinent to the place that you're living in. you need to explore your food options. You need to explore different places. Even if it's bad, that's fine. Just eat that and then don't go back to that place. It's okay. And don't discount a place before trying it at least once. Um, Also, ask your friends for recommendations. I know a lot of people that are so passionate about food. I have a whole list of restaurants in New York that I haven't even gotten to. And so I feel like something that I would change about my first year, second year experience is go out to explore more restaurants.
Mhm.
That is so fair. We have a question in the
Yeah.
Q&A from Palash, and they say, have you all ever faced racism or discrimination? If so, how did you deal with it? And I think this is a great question, and we should address it.
Oh,
Absolutely.
100%.
I think one thing that jumps right out to me is I was in my general chemistry lab. It was a 4 hour long lab. It really was not a good time. The worst thing on top of that was the guy that used to stand behind me. There were two people on each bench, and there were two people behind us. And so all four of us were talking, we were discussing something, and I was explaining my rationale to how I got to the answer because they weren't getting to it. And he goes like, "Oh, where are you from?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm from India." And he's like, "Oh, you speak really good English."
Just
Like
got
I
it.
didn't go to an international school, like it isn't technically my first language. And when I did mention to him that, hey, I'm like, yeah, I went to an international school and we were taught completely in English. Oh, were your teachers British? I was like, that does not even reflect on me. Like that reflects on you for the lack of your knowledge. And so I feel like a lot of times you can't do anything but understand that it's their lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
And sort of for me, like, I didn't say anything. I'm like, that's making you look stupid, bro. Like, it's fine. It's totally okay. But things like this definitely happen. There's like micro comments that get made, especially as a woman in STEM. I feel like not just racism, it's also just discrimination of like, it doesn't like oh, how did you get that before I did? And it's not just healthy competition sometimes. And it stings a bit, but you can't do anything but just stay true to yourself and prove yourself in the manner that you know best is by just being how you are and making yourself smarter and just adding to your own skill set. Because you're not in competition with them, you're in competition with who you were yesterday. And that's perfectly fine. However, I know people and friends of mine, especially after the pandemic, when there was a lot of discrimination against South Asian people, and not even Southeast Asian people. And I know people that were harassed, and I feel like dealing with that for them was a big deal. They needed to go to the campus security, they had to file reports at the NYPD, they had to obviously go and get therapy after because it was a big deal. So it comes in different ways, shapes, and forms, and you really have to learn to deal with it the best way possible. However, I do understand that there are systems in place to help you. So if you go through something, ask for help. Don't go through it alone. Unless it's something that you understand that you're sturdy on your feet, ask your friends for help. Talk to your family. Don't let it consume you, is what I would say.
Hmm. I 100% agree with that. I think there are resources in place for things like that. And honestly, your friends are also going to be some of the resources. Like they're one of those resources that you didn't know you could go to, but you can definitely go to. Um, I think there's a lot of stereotyping and microaggressions, period, during an international student's journey. Um, so I'm from Dubai, like Ansh's, and one of the things somebody asked me is, "How'd you get to school?" And I was like, "I'm not even kidding. Sometimes those questions would bother me." And I'd say, "I use a camel. I have 5 camels at home and 2 tigers. I use them to go to school." And I know that sounds really stupid, but sometimes you don't owe anybody an explanation to these questions at all. All you have to do is, if it depends on, honestly, for me, it depends on the mood that I'm in. And it also comes from the tone of the person that's us asking. So, a lot of times, people would ask me, being like, "Oh, where are you from?" That question irks me to my core. and it depends on who it's coming from. If it's coming from another person and I understand the tone, I get the vibes, then I'll be like, oh, this is my story. You know, I was born here, I was raised here, and now I moved here. But if it's coming from somebody that's actually like trying to understand and, you know, figure out why I'm who I am or why I'm so smart or whatever, it's coming from a place of not really wanting to know who I am or get to know me and my story. It's coming from a place of where can I categorize you because I don't know where you fit in. And that's when I'm like, I will tell you that I am from New York because that is where I'm from now. And you can't even say no. You can't be like where your parents are. I was like, well, they're from here around place, you know. So that. I would also say this. Be true to yourself, but at the same time, unlearn things that you think don't fit in with the person you are becoming. Because a lot of times, that is very important because it's not necessarily what we grow up with, is what we have to keep going with. There's change, there's accommodations, and you learn to do that. Plus, if any of you are planning on coming to New York, I'm not even kidding. New York has a way of toughening you up and you don't even have to worry about it. Like New York will kick your butt to the streets and you will figure it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I would say.
I love that.
I
I
think
think,
those are great answers. I want to share a little bit of my experience. Sorry to cut you off, Krish.
yeah, go ahead.
Similar to what Mahika said, is like people coming up to you and saying, like, I remember this barber saying, "Oh yeah, you speak great English for somebody who's Indian," and I was like, "Yeah, dude, I speak better English than you do," and that's the case with a lot of with that's what I experience. Also, I have like throughout my 4 years, I was in a lot of environments where I was the only brown person or like one of the only brown people, and more specifically, the only brown guy in those environments, and I didn't even feel singled out. I sort of sometimes felt excluded. And partly, like after some reflection, I feel like that might be my own doing, like me getting in my head. But also sometimes I felt like people wouldn't take me as seriously because of the way I looked and also because of the way I spoke, because I have an accent, whatever accent it is, right? And over time, I came to realize that there's a certain beauty in standing your ground and carving a space of your own and showing the people around you who initially didn't take you as seriously, showing them that, hey, man, I can do this. I can probably do this better than you. And I'm here to stay. And this is who I am. And so I think there's a certain beauty in that. So if you ever do encounter certain microaggressions, certain people saying, "Oh, you speak so, your English is so great," like all of that, just take it with like a grain of salt. Realize that these people haven't experienced people like you. This is the first time they're experiencing somebody like you, and they come from. Sometimes they just come from a place of ignorance and not from a place of hate. And obviously, ignorance is not the best thing to carry with you, but I guess you can look at it as like, okay, I'm here to educate you. I'm here to tell you that I'm that guy and I'm that girl. You know what I mean? So that was my experience.
I'd say piggybacking off of what you said, Ansh, you know, so, you know, the whole accent thing. A lot of Americans don't speak more than just English. Your
Yeah.
accent is who you are and how many languages you can speak. You are smart in 7 different languages if you know 7 different languages. And like something I wish I did, and I'm not even kidding, I still think about it to this day, is a lot of times, like on set, a lot of people would not take me seriously in my classes because of my accent. And now, because of that, again, I was an impressionable teenager when I joined. I didn't know better. I thought that in order for me to be smart, to be heard, I needed to change how I talk. And that was the biggest mistake I made because, high key, I wish I didn't do that. Because now I don't even recognize my own accent and it makes me so sad. So I would say keep to your accent. Don't let other people make you feel bad about it because you are smart in ways they will never be smart. So don't let that stop you. And listen, code switching is a thing. Absolutely do that if you feel comfortable. But honestly, from the bottom of my heart, don't switch up your accent. Because for me, I feel like I've lost a small part of myself. Like I've given America like this small part of my life, and I don't want that. So don't change up how you speak. You are smart. You are a mix of all of the languages you know, all of the culture you bring in, and don't make yourself feel small about it. They need to like figure out their own stuff. And if they can't understand it, that's on them.
Absolutely. I feel like we come in to the US with this need to fit in, but we forget everything that we are bringing in and everything that we will be contributing in the future. And so coming in with a mindset of being assurance in yourself and assurance in your skills and your personality will be accepted rightly by the right people. And that is what you need to find. And you, in trying to fit in, don't lose yourself, because then you will come into a crisis of who am I? Like, what's my personality? Like, where am I going? Who are my friends? Like, what am I doing with my life? And
Hmm.
having that set and stable while still growing will really help you and get you a long way. Another thing that I wanted to add was that we haven't spoken about yet is the newfound freedom when you leave your home and when you come to a new place. So I feel like you'll have that in your head, like, oh, I can go and do anything and be anyone and do whatever it comes to my mind and eat anything. But I feel like what also comes with that is a certain responsibility to keep yourself safe at the bottom of at the bottom of it all is keep yourself safe. And as Krish mentioned in the chat, I saw is like if you're walking outside late at night, walk with a group of friends, it is still like unsafe. I know that like people paint India as really unsafe and you can't walk in the streets at night, which I agree. But so is it for many different places around the world. And so you just have to be smart, have a friend with you, or try not to go out that late, or have like a whole group of friends with you. Go to places that you know are safe, steer away from empty alleyways. All of that stuff obviously goes without saying, but I feel like it's a good reminder, especially when you're in that honeymoon phase of, oh my God, I can do anything that I want. So you can, but safely.
Yeah.
Also, guys, we have about 10 minutes left and we don't want to keep everyone over. So we want to hear questions from your end. If you have any questions, drop it in the chat and we will just spend the last few minutes answering those. So we wait for a minute. Feel free to send it in. Also, for
I
university
think
questions like views on universities, Simran will be answering those. But other than those questions, if you have anything, we're happy to answer.
I think Mansi had a question. How long did it take for y'all to make acquaintances and friends? And I have a small answer to that is that I made a lot of friends in my freshman year, but they weren't really friends because in your freshman year, everybody is trying to be a friend. You're trying to be everybody's friend. Everybody's nice to each other, this and that. The friendship will last for like 6 months, even a year, even 2 years. But then eventually you're like, maybe this person is not for me. And then you do other activities, you go to your different classes, meet other people. You're like, maybe these are the people for me. And from my experience at the end of my senior year, like I would say I'm very blessed and fortunate to say that I have a handful of friends that I like dearly love because I know a lot of people are not in that position. So yes, it might you might make a lot of friends initially very quickly, or even it take you a little bit of time. But I feel like college is a 4 year journey. So think of it that way. So even if initially you don't find friends off the get go, it's okay. You will eventually will.
Hmm. Um, so for me, it's something similar, like Ansh said. I had so many friends coming in freshman year, and honestly, all of those friends started like becoming smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. I would say I finally found like my group of friends, like my people, my senior year of college. It was like junior into senior year of college. And I am so grateful for that. Like, I've done undergrad and grad school right here. I talked to six people from undergrad. I'm not even kidding. I met two of them yesterday. So I'm like, well, I speak to six people, and those six people are more than enough for my entire lifetime. I've cried with them. I have had some of my best moments with them. I'm visiting some of them. I, their family is my family at this point. And I would say it's not about the quantity of friends you have, it's the quality. You can get through any place with four people. I'm not even kidding. You just need four people. So it's like it's one of those things. And it's okay if you're not talking to friends from freshman year. I promise you they won't care.
Yeah.
All that said, do not stop making friends because of this. Like you won't know who your friends are unless you just go and just, be open to everyone. Just like go and have fun. Don't cut yourself off. Don't be judgmental because a lot of people, like I've been told so many times, people's first impression of me was this guy's intimidating. This guy's not open speaking with me. And I'm a really sweet guy. Let's get that straight. But it often doesn't come out that way. So you just got to be really careful. Not careful. Just be free. Don't be nonchalant. Don't think too much. Just have fun.
Absolutely. I feel like, well, when I went in, I didn't have a lot of friends freshman year because I went to New York my sophomore year, actually. So going in, first thing was that meeting that I went to. I feel like I made a few friends there that were working with me, but I also got told the same thing as Krish. I'm like, you look so intimidating. Like I didn't want to come up to you and say something. Like you seem like you know what you're doing. Like you're okay on your own. Like I am, and it doesn't hurt to have friends. And so allowing yourself to be open enough to go and say hi to another person is really will take you a long way. Another thing is joining clubs and doing different activities. The thing
Mhm.
that Ansh and Bernal were mentioning is that you will have a lot of friends in freshman year and then they'll sort of like fade out is because you guys are growing and you guys are learning what you want to do. And like Bernal said, like 4 people is good enough. Sometimes even just one other person
Too
or
much. Yeah.
yourself. And so when you're going in, like I remember just getting up and getting out of my room, like go up and go do something. It's fine if you're doing that alone. It's totally okay. I feel like it's kind of frowned upon to do activities by yourself. I feel like that's totally okay. Like I go watch movies by myself all the time, and that's totally fine. You are your own company all the time, and so learn how to be on your own as well while
Be
learning.
comfortable.
Be comfortable. Yeah.
We have a question from Palash. When did you start earning and how much was it enough to sustain yourself and unburden your parents financially?
Well, as a Dubai kid, I'm kidding. But a lot of what I wanted to do when I first started and come in is my parents were paying a lot of tuition. I'm sure everybody else's parents were paying same, if not more amount of tuition. Um, and what I tried to do is I tried to find a campus job ASAP, Rocky. I tried to get my social security in, which is very important, y'all. Y'all can't start working before that. And then I tried to figure out how much I would need. I'm not kidding. I'm an Excel person. I've tried to figure out how much money would I need in a month to sustain and not ask my parents for money. I had this whole guilty thing of like them, I don't want them to spend more money than they already are. So I tried to figure it out. And that's what I did. Was it enough to sustain? Absolutely not. There are a lot of things that I needed my first year that I would not have if it wasn't for me asking my parents for money. Gradually, it became less and less and less. And then by junior year, I was fine. I would take care of myself. I also paid my rent by myself. By senior year, all of my expenses were my expenses. And that's because I hustled a lot. Like, I'm not kidding. I had two campus jobs. I was a peer leader. I had an internship going on. I had 18 credits. I didn't know what time I slept, what time I woke up. I was in a daze for the like that last year and a half, but I made it happen. I would not recommend doing all of that because I eventually learned to burn out and then I needed like a few months to recover. But it's not enough, at least for your first year. You could be as frugal as you want, but you'd be cutting corners on things that you shouldn't be cutting corners on. So I would say if you can save now before you leave, that works, but it'll only take you so far.
Yep,
But yeah.
that's a great answer. I think we're running short on time. It's 10:59. We don't want to keep you guys or our attendees for any longer than they need to be here. So, Mahika, Brenelle, any final words of wisdom for our audience here?
I feel like just go into it with a positive mindset, be sure of yourself, and trust that you've got this. Anything that there is, you will figure it out. And of course, one thing that I'd like to highlight is the fact that Rome is going to be a platform where you can find people and community for you. And so Unlike for me, you'll go in already finding friends in the group chats that you're joining. And so that's your first home base when you, even before you go in. And I feel like that is so important. And the work that Krish and Ansh are doing is so important. So, of course, I would just second that, make the most of your resources, gain as much knowledge as you can, because that is the power to you figuring things out. And search it up before you ask questions, because the likelihood is if the answer is right in front of you. So stay calm and just, you'll be fine.
Um, I would say everybody's as scared as you are walking into college. Everybody pretends to not be scared, but we are scared. And it is okay to be scared together. Now, like what Mahika said, we are here to help you. Rome is here to stay. Use the resources you have within us. Make your friends now. Build that community. Connect with us. Ask us for more help. Whatever you need, we're here because we didn't have this. So use us as resources because we're here to help. We want to help, and that's why Rome is here. We are here.
Awesome. I think that's
Also,
a great way to end it. I'll just end by saying, as international students, I feel like I came into the United States feeling lesser than the people who I was surrounding myself with. But I want you to understand that it's not that they have admitted you into the universities. You have agreed to join the universities and provide value in the way you do, and provide the years of experience of living in another country and show that to them. So use that as your motivator. Don't feel less. Don't feel inferior to the people around you. Just want to say thank you so much for everybody who joined. Uh, I feel like we had like 27 people to start with, we 17 people here, which is, I feel like, great retention. So I hope you guys found this useful. I really hope so. We'll see you next week. Hopefully, next week we're going to cover navigating academic life with two other mentors, undecided yet, but figuring it out. Thank you so much, guys. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And thank you so much, Mahika and Brenelle. Obviously, thank you, Krish.